Hello YouTube world, my name is Nicholas Montez and you're watching my YouTube channel, The Teenage Movie Critic. And welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody. And in today's video, we're doing a movie tier list. That's right, folks. This past weekend, Superman 2025 came out from James Gunn. And that means today we're going to go ahead and stop and rank the Superman movies, along with Superman and the Mole Men and Supergirl, and a few of the films from the DCEU. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we're doing this in theatrical order, theatrical release. So there were a few Superman serials that I saw before the first film, but I didn't really want to include them, but the only one I actually included was Superman and the Mole Men, which was very interesting movie, if I won't say so myself. This movie was just very weird. I think it was based off a TV show that was going on a lot in the 50s, as, you know, Superman and stuff. Before the 70s and stuff, you know, they had shows for Batman and Superman. Those shows were very campy and goofy, and they weren't necessarily taken seriously. And so for me, and it's also like 58 minutes, so I think I'm just going to have to put this one in the F tier, unfortunately. It wasn't that good. But, you know what is that good? Superman, the movie, 1978. Now, keep in mind, it's been 2 months. Oh, my bad. It's been 2 months since I have seen the first Superman movie. And, you know, I am not familiar with the Superman lore and how it works. You know, I just became a Superman fan. The only character I ever knew of superheroes from DC was Batman. And I watched this movie wondering what all the hype is about. And now I finally understand this character. This character is basically has all the powers of a god and could possibly rule over Earth, but chooses not to and decides to help out the little people. He decides to save a cat out of a tree. He decides to put out a fire. He decides to do all this, but at the same time, he still does those heroic acts, but he does a lot of the, you know, friendly stuff, something of a friend would do. And I really enjoyed that. And Christopher Reeve was perfect in this role. But at the same time, this was also the first time where we actually had a superhero movie. Like, this was the first one that actually took the material seriously. And as we're going along with the journey of Kal-El and you know, he's, you know, protecting the world, and you see the stuff with his parents, and even in the opening credits, it's all so big. You have Marlon Brando playing Jor-El, Superman's father, and all this stuff, and you're surrounding Superman around a crazy, unique cast with a nobody that is not a nobody up to this point, and the movie is great with a fantastic score. The entire cast is powerful. And honestly, I think they made one of the best superhero films ever made, in my opinion. And it inspires a lot, as it inspired, like, the first Spider-Man. And it inspired, like, just all these films. It's so good. We then have Superman 2, which, it's kind of interesting considering there's, like, 2 different versions of this movie. Where there's, the version that's this one, and then we have the Richard Donner cut. And that didn't come out until like 2006. This one, I still think is very good. It, of course, inspired the great comic book sequels such as Spider-Man 2. But what this film does so great is it puts the Lois and Clark romance at the front and center. But it also decides to bring in some action with, like, the Zods and the Kryptonians. And I really enjoy all that stuff with them as they're, like, trying to fight Superman. And so you actually get Superman fighting some foes that are fit for him. And I thought that was kind of entertaining. The score still works. It's still powerful. The fact that, Superman has to give up his powers to be with Lois. The reason why this one doesn't work quite as well as the first film is because some of the plot is a little bit weird, but you still kind of get two interesting creations from this movie. But I still think Superman 2 was still a very good movie. So I'll put this one in B. And then we have Superman 3, which honestly I don't really remember much of, and I'll put this one in the D tier. It had a few solid moments, but We then have Supergirl, which honestly was probably the weirdest movie I've ever seen. It kind of had an interesting story, and I think the reason for it didn't work was because they didn't have Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow created, and that comic book came out a few years ago, so I think that's the reason why. But I'll put this one, unfortunately, in F. We then have, or actually, no, I'll put this one in above Superman and the Mole Men because it actually has a really good score. We then have Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and yeah, this is also another pretty mediocre Superman movie. D. And then we have Superman Returns, which is a very interesting movie because there's a lot of great scenes in this movie. The airplane sequence, the usage of the John Williams score is fantastic. The character, like the way Daniel Ralph, I don't even know his name, the guy that plays Superman, he's really good. I think the problem is it's just too long and it's a little boring, and it's not entertaining. Not to say that Superman needs to be entertaining, but at the same time it's like it needs to have a good script. It needs to be interesting, and I don't really know if it does that really well. So I'm gonna put this one in the C category, unfortunately. We then have Man of Steel, which was the Superman movie for the DCEU. And I thought this movie, after rewatching it this past week, it doesn't age well. Because I now know what Superman stands for, and this movie did not stand for Superman. This movie was an absolute dumpster fire. It had, of course, I get it. You want to bring cool action sequences in the DC, in the present day for Superman. You want to give him exciting, unique action. You want to do this. You want to do that. You want to mix in all these flavors. However, I think you made it a little too dark to where you go to Metropolis and you go to this place. It doesn't really work all that well. So I think kind of suffered a little bit because of that. So I'm going to put this one in the C tier. Then we have Batman v Superman, which was another flawed movie. But once again, doesn't really work because it's also trying to compile too many different ideas, introduce too many characters, and set up a whole new universe to where it couldn't really focus on one big story. The only thing I really liked about this film, loved all the action. The Batman warehouse fight was awesome, but I wish the movie was just as awesome as that fight. And then finally we have Superman 2025, and where am I going to put this film? I think it's one of the best Superman movies. Great. It is a great film. And I'm going to put this one in the A tier. It's got a great Superman. It has that feel of the 1978 film. It is just great overall. Oh, I realized my camera was falling. My bad. But yeah, that is my thoughts on the Superman films. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.